Hi love. I'm not sure if I'm the only one that has this on their For You page where like mothers, well, from Reddit are saying why they regret having kids, or having, you know, things on their For You page where someone's listing reasons not to get pregnant because the complications, like, it's just not worth it. And reading through the comments, like, everyone seems to be in agreement, or maybe that's just on my For You page. So that is when I started wondering, like, do I really want to have kids? Like, is it actually worth it? And I started to look around on the internet of what the consensus is, and a lot of people feel that way. So I had to ask myself, why is that? So today's video is sponsored by, yeah, we're not there yet, but anyway, let's talk about parenthood and also the misinformation that we see about it in media. Whenever I think of how parenthood is shown on TV, it always brings me back to that movie, I forgot what it's called, Gone Girl, when she's describing the cool girl, but then I just like flip it and say the cool mom, where a lot of movies and like television shows, all that kind of stuff, always depicts the mom as the cool mom, the mom that just never gets tired, who is always up early with everyone, making breakfast that no one eats. Everyone just takes a little bite after she's made a whole buffet of breakfast, and the mom has everything in order. She doesn't get tired. She doesn't seem to have any financial problems, and even though the dad is always deadbeat, she's always like joyful about it. She never really complains to him that much. And that is the type of mom or the parent that we've seen on media throughout the years. Someone that always gives advice, who always knows it all, and they kind of switch up just right there and there. Like, you'll be watching a series of someone be a total wreck, but as soon as they have a child, they have like this switch that turns on. And I wonder if that's actually possible, but like, I'm gonna go on with it later on, that is actually not realistic. But anyway, they have this switch on where they become the perfect mom. I mean, the cool mom, her purpose is fulfilled. She will often give up her career to have a child, which is also a beautiful thing, but like, that's always what we see. And if she does choose her career, she is villainized, she is selfish. And also with regards media as well, I'm talking about, you know, social lies, you know, like the Kardashians. I mean, Kylie, that's her name. Kylie, when she had her baby, you know, she'd be showing us, you know, how she does it all, how she takes care of her baby. We see her cooking with her child, as if she doesn't have a whole staff list of people that help her take care of her child. Where the average person seeing that, I mean, there was a point where I saw that I was like, I want to have a baby girl, you know, so I can do her hair, all that kind of stuff, where it's like, that's literally 2 minutes of their lives. Like, we know nothing, but what we do know is that they have nannies in place that take care of them. They have people that cook for them, all that kind of stuff, which is just not realistic for the average person. So as the media has lied to us, social media is like taking a stand back, which is why I like social media, because like, you're really knowing people's real lives and people are coming on here and sharing their stories. We have now learned that no, when you give birth, there's a lot of complications that happen. I don't have them like written down, but like there are a lot of things are gonna happen. It's not just as simple as just giving birth. You go home and, you know, you take your 3 months and that's it. There's a lot of changes that happens.
Labor and delivery facts from a high-risk labor and delivery nurse. Number 1, if your water breaks, it will probably be nothing like you see in the movies. Shocker. In movies, you know, you see this big dramatic gush of water, the woman starts panicking and they rush to the hospital and she has a baby in the next scene. It's possible that you'll have a big gush of fluid come out, and if you do, you should always talk to your provider, because it may be your water breaking. But many times it's sort of a small gush. It may be a trickle that is continuous, and you may not be able to tell if you wet your pants or if it was your water breaking. Sometimes the trickle comes and goes, especially if you are having some contractions. You may notice more fluid come out with the contraction, sort of like a squeeze of the uterus, and it starts to seep out. Many times a person's water breaking, especially if it's their first time giving birth, does not mean that a baby is coming in the next 10 minutes. Still important to let your provider know anytime you think your water may have broken, because we're concerned about a risk for infection if the labor doesn't move forward and progress. But if this is your first time having a baby especially, it is not likely that your water will break and there'll be a huge gust of fluid and then your baby's gonna be born in 5 minutes. Number 2, even in labor, you should still be noticing your baby move. There's this terrible myth out there that it's okay to feel no movement or very little movement if you're in labor. That is not true, and that's a dangerous myth. I think that myth came to existence because if you are in the throes of labor, it's easy and normal to forget to notice your baby move because you're focused on the pain and the contractions. Say, oh, as you're in labor, the baby doesn't have as much space, not much room to move. That's why you don't feel movement. But despite the fact that the baby will have less room as they're getting further down into the pelvis and descending, they should still be moving 5 times or more in 1 hour period. If that's not the case, or you're not entirely sure that that's been happening, you need to let the provider know. Whether you're home in labor, whether you're at the hospital or your birth center, you have to let the provider know that. And number 3, you may or may not poop or have a bowel movement when you're pushing. When you're pushing your baby out, you're using the transverse abdominal muscles. Also, the baby's very deep and low into the pelvis. The baby's head is even pressing against the sacrum. It feels like a big bowel movement. In fact, if my patient is pooping while she pushes, it's a sign to me that she's pushing in the right spot. And if you aren't pooping when you push, it doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. Everybody's just different. I hope all this info helps.
There's a lot of sacrifice someone has to make, like a human being is growing inside of you. There's a lot of change that's going to happen, and it should definitely be taken into consideration. And there's also the Reddit stories where people are literally coming out and saying, I regret having kids. This is why. I don't know who I am anymore. My kids are my life. I have lost myself. So it's kind of like sad. Like this person here said, I had instant regret the moment he was born. Like, I felt very alien, and like it wasn't really me that just had him. Very out of body experience. Even now I feel disconnected. I believe it to be a part of, not mostly, for the fact that he is severely autistic. I'm a single mother and his dad does nothing over the bare minimum. My life is harder than I ever imagined. I checked out most of the time I'm with him. I'm in therapy and my therapist believes my disassociation is a defense mechanism so I don't have a nervous breakdown. He's 8 and he was extremely difficult from the very beginning. He is nonverbal, non-potty trained, plays in his feces, pours everything out on the floor, and I'm on autopilot most days. I put on wireless headphones and listen to music from my teens so I can muster through the days. The story goes on, and it's clearly a unique situation, but it's still really scary. Now it's not as glamorized anymore on social media. Like, people are really coming out holding their little baby and like trying to keep everything together, and it's just really difficult. I remember watching a series with my husband, or I wasn't watching it, like we have a very different taste in series, but anyway, he was watching a series of like olden times, you know, like in the Renaissance, stuff like that, and a woman was giving birth and she just like cried like a little bit and she gave birth, and like, you know, she was fine, she was holding the baby, and then like 5 minutes later she's already walking about like life is as normal. I'm like, is that really how that happens? You know, now after having the revelation of where everyone is speaking out, I was like, actually babe, that's not what happens. And then later on he had a discussion with his sister and everyone else, and they were like, no, that's not what happens when you give birth. But like, he's been conditioned to feel like, he's been conditioned all through his life that people just give birth, you know, and it's, you know, you get back and it's fine, and no one's really questioned that. I had that idea as well. I was like, you know, just give birth. I never thought about it, but like now I'm so glad we're having these conversations. So that's definitely a reason worth considering, us seeing real mothers speak on the issues of motherhood. Okay, technically I'm just like, you don't really hear any dads complaining because they don't really do anything. But anyway, and another reason why people are having less and less children is the economy. Economy is really just like terrible right now, and everywhere that there's nowhere that's better. When I was in Africa, looking at people in Europe or like Americas and all that kind of stuff, I'll be like, oh, they have it so much better. Like, you know, it's worse everywhere. Like, it's bad everywhere. Like, there's no one that's like having it any better, because it's like, I was watching this video where someone was complaining that when American tourists go to Africa to get their hair done, you know, they are willing to pay more, but then for Americans it's cheaper because they're already paying more there, but like for Africans it's also expensive. Like, it was like there's no winning. Like, everyone is literally struggling. Just to read some statistics that prove that people are just having less and less children. In Italy, 12 people now die for every 7 babies born. In South Korea, the birth rate is down to 0.81 children per woman. In China, after decades of strictly enforced one-child policy, oh, we all know about that one, the population shrinking for the first time since the 1960s. In Taiwan, the birth rate stands at 0.87. Oh my gosh. And in other countries, they have tried direct payments to parents. NYASHA began offering a one-time sum of about $7,000 to families with more than 2 kids, while in Italy and Greece have experimented with per-child baby bonuses in 2019. So that's just to say that the people in charge are freaking out because less and less people are having kids. And you might wonder, like, why are they freaking out? Children cost money, and the less children, the less money that's being spent. Average cost of raising a child is roughly about $300,000 from childbirth to 17 years of age. I think I saw somewhere where it cost about $30,000 to give birth in America. Oh, that's America, but like here in France, you know, with the healthcare system that's so much better, it costs less. But like over there in other places in the world, it does cost a lot to even birth a child, to even stay in the hospital. And insurances, all that kind of stuff, they not help. I never really understood insurances. Now that I am married, and you know, the insurance conversation is spoken about even more, because before it was just my parents, but now it's like, oh my gosh, I feel like we're just paying every month for nothing. It's like, what are we even paying for? There's always these little, you know, hidden little fees and all that kind of stuff where it's like, when you're actually in a problem, they don't help, so you have to pay. People are also realizing that they can't afford to feed themselves. People are living like right on the line. Like their paycheck is them between homelessness and like moving on to the next month. So if they can't take care of themselves, what less a child? A child. And right now with just the pressure of online and all that kind of stuff, and where babies are wearing like Louis Vuitton, like that is so bizarre. So it's like, have you seen this kids, you know, wanting to buy things from like Sephora? Like, you're 9 years old, why are you wanting something for Sephora? The only thing I was crazy about and wanting my mom to buy me was like a Barbie doll, like, you know, Bratz, you know, those little books. I loved Bratz so much. Like I was a huge fan, not Barbie, Bratz, you know. That's what I would want. That was what I was pressuring my parents to buy. Now kids want to get, you know, the latest things which are really expensive, Lululemon, all that kind of stuff. It's very, very bizarre and like a lot of money. Now let's talk about being a single parent while in a marriage. I feel like a lot of women can probably relate to this, and I've also seen it like in real life, where like a friend will have like a child, but like really they are the only parent. Like honestly, like the guy is just like, can just choose to just not participate or like be involved in the child's life, and the wife, you know, or the girlfriend does everything. And we are seeing so many of those kind of stories around us where it's like, do I really want to be a single parent in a marriage? Like, is it really worth it? Because some people just think that giving money, you know, just working and giving the money, like that's all they're required to do. But you, the woman, is supposed to do everything else. You are supposed to cook, clean, take care of the kids, and go to work. I think that's also where the 50-50 situation kind of goes. I don't want to get into that, but just looking at that: work, clean, take care of the kids, take care of the household, basically the mental toll of it. Because when other people, man, see that, they're just like, but you're just doing a little bit of cleaning, you know, like it's nothing. But like, have you ever seen the dads when the wife is not there, how chaotic the house is? Yeah, it's the mental toll of it, having to think ahead of things. That is a lot to place on one person.
When it comes to the mental load, one of the biggest complaints that women have typically is that their partner will say, just tell me what to do. Tell me what to do and I'll do it. And that in itself is obviously a mental load, but not only is it a mental load, it's very frustrating because oftentimes they have said what they need or what to do. They've said, hey, it'd be really helpful if every day you emptied the dishwasher, or if you could get the kids ready. And then what happens is the partner either forgets, doesn't know how to do it, continues to ask how to do it, or requires their partner to tell them every single time. So they can't just tell them one time, they have to tell them every time. And so when you say, just tell me what to do, it doesn't actually feel like you are participating. It's as if you are asking your partner to instruct you and guide you the whole way. And today in my home, I found the example of the reverse of that, because men will often say, like, how often do you change your oil? Or do you do X, Y, Z for your home? Do you know how to change the air filters, etc.? And if I told you how to do it, would you know how to do it every single time? And today in my house, I was turning the air on because I was cold. And I know, because last year we had some trouble with turning the heat on, that if you don't shut the breaker off for the AC, it can cause something to like trip. And so before I turned on the heat, I went to the basement and I flipped the breaker for the AC. And when my husband came home, he was like, oh my gosh, you have the heat on. Like, you don't know about the breaker. Yes, I do, because you told me. You told me last year, if I want to switch from the AC to the heat when the fall comes, I need to shut the breaker off. So I did. I shut the breaker off. And this is no different than me saying to a partner, our baby's nap is at 9 a.m. Can you please make sure she naps at 9 a.m.? If I told you this on Monday, this is still true on Saturday. I should not have to reiterate it every single time, right? This was an entire year. My partner did not have to remind me. I remembered, because I'm an adult. And typically you don't have to tell me something 10 times for me to do it. And this is what women are typically asking of their male partners in these heteronormative relationships. We are asking that when we do tell you something, when we hand you it on a platter and say, this is what it is, this is what we need from you, that you take that, you listen to it, and you actually do it, and that you remember it, and don't have to continue asking and requiring us to expend our mental energy for you to do that task.
And to top it off, having another person who's just chilled, like this video. Like, it really hurts me so much watching that. Like, this lady is trying to contain, or I don't even know what, 3 kids, and he's just sitting there, like, nothing to worry about. And if you tell him to help, he'll be like, but I work, I work and you don't work, and I'm doing everything, like, yeah, because, working a 9 to 5, something that you probably would have been doing anyway if we were single. Like, it's not like it's an added thing. Like, if I was to leave, you would still work. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a normal thing. Like, but anyway, I digress. Now, I'm not sure where I got this advice from, but someone was like, you should only have a kid when your partner wants to have a kid more than you do, and they are fully aware of the responsibilities that come with having a child, which I have, we've been discussing with my partner. I was like, yeah, when should we have kids? And we're like, yeah, not now, definitely. Like, he's definitely like, not now, but like, same as and I definitely want to make sure that when we do, we can both be involved with the child, and that we can have that he can have the mental load and I can have the mental load. Like, we share everything together, because one thing I don't want to be is the mental load partner that's just take care of everything that has to do with the child, and have a partner that doesn't know my child's birthday. Like, have you seen those videos where the dad like has no idea when the child's birthday is? Like, they're just not involved. They don't know the classes the child has. They don't know the friends. Like, they're just not involved at all. And I was like to my partner, like, thank God for him, like, he's perfect. I was like, you know what, yeah, we have these type of discussions, like things that we're gonna have to give up. Like, he loves his video games, all that. And I was like, yeah, when you have a child, that as well, I'll probably have to make my videos when the child is sleeping or something like that. But it's like, understanding that, like, when we have a child, I don't have to give up everything about myself, and that he also doesn't have to give up anything about himself, that we can both, compromise for the sake of our child, and understand that, okay, we're having a child, we've done everything we've wanted to do, we've had our freedoms, and now it is time to take care of the child and everything be about that child, because that's really what it is. And another reason why people don't want to have kids is unresolved traumas. Like, a lot of people, I talked about that in my last video. If you haven't watched it, please go check it out. Where I was talking about African parents and their kids, and why millennials are leaving them or like cutting them off. And one of the reasons was trauma. And if you have unresolved trauma and you are self-aware, see, I love people that are self-aware. I love that. If you're self-aware, then obviously you should really resolve that before having kids. And some people just feel like, you know what, like, it's too much for me to have a kid. Like, I know I'm gonna mess up. Like, that is gold, being self-aware of that. And of course, other few reasons, like the world is a dangerous place, which is totally understandable. Like, the amount of am I allowed to say that? The amount of that happens around here in this world, predators, you know, online, especially, I'm going to speak to people who are planning to have kids that are on social media. Like, please don't make your baby a content baby. Like, please don't be exposing your kid to the internet. Like, it's such a dangerous place. Like please don't. But anyway, the world is a dangerous place, and you should definitely be aware of that before having kids. Like, the place that you live, you know, what you expose them to, that really needs to be taken into consideration. And other people simply don't want to have kids because their careers matter more, and some people might respond to that as like you being selfish. But like, how can you be selfish for something that doesn't even exist yet? Like, it's not like the child is there in the clouds, you know, seeing the mom not want to have kids. Like, that argument is so, it doesn't make sense. Like, I have a career, I want to be this and this and that, and that's what's important to me. I don't want to have to give up, because some women definitely know for sure that their partners are going to make sure that they give up their careers, you know, for the sake of the child. So they don't want to give up their careers, and that is completely valid. Some people, their work is their life, and that is honestly fine. And there's always that argument like, yeah, but like, who's going to take care of you? I feel like I'm shouting at you. Like, I'm so sorry. Like, this was supposed to be a calm video, but clearly I'm very passionate about this topic. I digress. But anyway, there's people that are like, oh, but like, who's gonna take care of you when you're old? I have a question for you. Are you taking care of your parents right now? Do you live with them? Huh? I guess that's what's different about like the African culture, where it's like we not really stay with our grandparents, but like our families are just so huge that the grandparents will be living in like the village, but like with other cousins. They're never like alone as it is here, like in Europe, where you hear that. I heard something that a woman in her 80s, she died in her apartment for days. No one knew, no one came to visit. So I guess that's like the imagery people have when, you know, they're old, that they're gonna be alone. Well, if you are kind enough to your kids, that's not gonna happen to you, you know? And also there's like old age homes you can go to, and like normally that's not, you know, you take care of your parents, but like you can live with them. But there's other old people who still have people to take care of them. Like, it's not the end of the world. I don't understand that argument, really. And I read a comment online. Someone's like, yeah, but like, what about, you know, your genetics? Is it genetics? But like your lineage. Yeah. Why would you want to stop it, you know? And the girl was like, well, the curse stops here. Like, the self-awareness of like, this family has just like been a mess. It stops here. And like just the feeling of like it's fine if you don't have kids after to carry on. Like, it's not like, I don't understand why people think that, you know, that is the final thing that happens. So like, you still have your friends, they can still talk about you after you're gone, I guess. You know, you can make an impact in the world. There's other people that have died who we're still talking about, who didn't have kids. So it's like, you're not gonna just disappear into thin air. Well, eventually you will, but like, it's okay. The last reason that I looked into was that people just don't want to have kids because they don't like kids and they don't want to, and that's just it. Like, it stops right there. We don't have to go any further, but like, they just don't want to. And I think you should never ever force someone who doesn't want kids to have kids and be like, you should have kids, when they've outwardly told you they don't want kids. Obviously they're not going to take care of those kids because they don't want the kids. What we obviously do have a problem with people who say that but continue to have unprotected and make babies all around and just run away from the responsibilities. Like, if you did it, you have to take responsibility. Like, there's a lot of things no one wants to do, but like, if you do have a kid and you don't want one, you have to take care of it. I'm sorry, like, that's your responsibility. You are dealing with the consequences, okay? Like, that's it. If you don't want to have kids, you don't like them, make sure that the possibility of having them is 0 to none %, okay? Like, it's as simple mathematics. At the end of the day, it is a matter of personal choice, but it can also be a financial choice. It can also be health problems. But right now in this current political climate, a lot of people should be understood for not wanting to have kids. There's so much happening in this world that it's not as simple as just like, oh, let's start a family. Like, there is not a lot of happy endings in real life that we've seen on media. Like, that's not how life works, and the work that goes into it, raising a kid and all that kind of stuff, it takes a lot, and it takes a village. But now we live in times where there isn't really a village to raise a kid. It's just you and your husband, or just you by yourself. So you really have to take a lot of things into consideration before putting another human in this life, okay? So at the end of the day, it's really up to you, and I hope that you make, you know, a good decision for yourself, and you're allowed to change your mind. Okay, there was a time I was like 16, I didn't want any kids. Now I do, but obviously at a later time. I feel like there's so much I really want to achieve before that, you know, for my kids to have a better life. So hi kids, if you're gonna watch this later on, mommy loves you. And you know, I actually got this idea from a TikToker. They were like, if you're planning to have kids, you should make a diary and like write things in them so you can give it to them later on. Like write little notes, have some pictures. And I've started doing that actually, because that's how sure I am right now that I want to have kids. And whenever something happens between my husband and I, something cute, I write in there. If there's like a picture, you know, I take pictures and I stick it in the book, and I can't wait to give it to them. So like, hopefully, you know, that can happen. But like, yeah, if you don't want to have kids, that's fine. If you want to have kids, that is also fine. If you're not sure, that is also fine. You have time. So that is it for this video. Hope you guys really enjoyed this video. See you guys next time. Bye.
You call yourself a free spirit, a wild thing, and you're terrified somebody's going to stick you in a cage. Well, maybe you're already in that cage and built it yourself.